today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all the tips you need to know to be able to add depth into your design, because look, once you add depth in your designs, it gives your design a realistic feel and actually brings your design to life. And there are some techniques you really need to know and actually to master. I'm going to be explaining everything in this video, so make sure you're watching up to the end, because there's no essence in you learning one or two when you can actually get to know all the five. Okay, so let's dive straight into this video. Okay, so before we even get started, the first thing I just want you to do is subscribe. Okay, please subscribe, because why would you even get to this point when you haven't subscribed? So make sure you are subscribing, and the like button is also yours. At least just like it, it doesn't hurt. All right, so the first way to add depth in your designs is overlapping your elements. All right, and instead of just explaining and talking, look, I don't think that's the best way to show you. So I'm going to actually take you inside of Canva, and we are going to be using these elements, okay, to bring everything to life. So the first one is overlapping your elements. Okay, and what does it mean? What it simply means is bringing some elements in front and some behind, doing that kind of thing. That's what overlapping simply means. So I have this gentleman over here, you may know him, okay, and I'll just increase the image a little bit. If I want to overlap, let me move this up here a little bit. If I want to overlap, I can use this. Okay, in fact, let me move all these to the top. Okay, let me move them to the top, and I'm struggling. Okay, yeah, I'm not struggling. All right, so to overlap, what I simply said was having some elements behind certain element and some in front of some elements. I hope you understand. Yeah, so I can use this one, for example, maybe increase the size. Okay, it's already behind, and just have it like this, so you can see now it makes it feel like the Canva tool is behind me, or the Canva interface is behind me. Okay, if I want to bring it to the front, I can right click, use the layer, come to show layers. Okay, and you can see we have it over here. I can just even bring it in front. Okay, but it doesn't even look nice if it's like this. Behind looks nice. So that's the first way to overlap. Then we can also use this one as well. Okay, to overlap, we have it like this, and I can also rotate it and send behind. Okay, and you can see how things are looking already. Okay, so once I have them here like this, it makes everything look beautiful. Okay, so I can have it. It even gives the design, it makes me look like a boss already. That's, the whole Canva thing is behind me, not in front of me. Okay, but what you also need to understand is once you're overlapping your element, just make sure that the things you're overlapping is actually making sense. It's giving a vibe. There's a reason behind it. There should be a reason behind you overlapping your stuff. Okay, so that's the first technique you need to understand: overlapping items. Okay, the second technique you need to understand is the color and contrast. So color and contrast is another way you can use to add depth in your design, and let me show you what you can do with this. Okay, so with this one, for example, all right, we are going to be using the background mainly for this step. So I want to add depth even with my background. I can first of all, let's say, add a shape. Okay, have it like this, and I'll just bring it down like this. Okay, now send it to the back. Okay, so just pay attention to what I'm about to do. You see how this is looking with the color. Yes, already there's contrast, but I don't think it really suits whatever we are trying to do. Okay, so I would come into color. Okay, and with the same color over here, I will just make this the same color. Okay, and I'll come to add new color and make this a bit darker. All right, make this a bit darker. If you are not even getting the whole vibe, let me just do this. Let me bring it here, and let me copy and paste this over here. Okay, so this can be used as a floor. Okay, this side can be used as a floor. So if I'm to bring another element in here, let's say laptop. Okay, so laptop. If I bring any laptop, I'm going to images and bring, let's say this one. If I place it over here, it gives that kind of vibe that, okay, so the laptop is on the floor. Okay, because if I move this, it's flat. If this is here, it adds more reason and it adds more meaning to the design. So that's the first way you can add depth, and you can do this in so many ways. Okay, I can add another one, and let's see, I can add a triangle. Okay, so triangle, and let me just add a shape over here. Okay, so another thing we can even do is this can be here like this. Okay, and we can apply the same color. Okay, a little darker shade okay, something like this. You can see it's nice. And if we have, let's say, a portal, only if we get something like that, yeah, a portal, we can reduce it and place it over here. Okay, and this alone just makes it feel like it's very far to get over there. So you can see how things are even looking just with color. We are already adding depth in our design. But when it comes to this, how can we add depth? So we can use contrast and that. And so let's assume with how things are looking, okay, if there was light in front of me, the main light would be casted on me, and behind me would be some shadows, or anything behind me would be a bit darker because they'll be receiving less light. Okay, so all I can do for these ones is I can just select this, come to edit, come to adjust, okay, and just reduce the brightness, just to give the illusion that, okay, this item is receiving less light and I'm the main factor, I'm the main point of focus, like everyone should look at me. Okay, so that's another way under the color and contrast to add depth in your design. If you have overlapping items behind one main item you want people to focus on, whatever is behind can receive less brightness or should be less bright. I hope you enjoyed it so far. Now let's look at the third thing you can do to add depth in your boring design. So the third one is size and placement. Okay, and let me show you quickly. All right, so if we come over here, let me just add this in here. All right, so I can add this, and just by what I'm about to do, I'm sure something would occur to you. Okay, so I'll just make this, let's say, a bit darker, so adding the idea from what we spoke about, okay, from the second step, and I bring this one in front. What does it tell you? Even by this alone, it gives you an idea that this is behind just because of the size. Okay, and if we are to bring it in front, what does it tell you? It tells you that this is this is behind and this is in front just because of the size. Okay, now let's just do another one, so we can add another triangle. Okay, let me just add another triangle over here. Okay, so once we have this triangle, we can create another one like this and make it smaller. Okay, and also send it to the back. All right, then with the color, if I also make it more darker, all right, just with the size alone, it gives you an impression, okay, of the fact that, okay, this is behind just because it's small and this is in front just because it's big. Okay, if I increase it, it still gives the impression because the size is working together with the color. Okay, so you can see how sizes also can give an illusion, okay, and helps you to add depth into your design. So if I also make this, let's say, small, and bring it here with the same color, it tells you that this is way behind and it's small, so it gives us some sort of depth in our design. And even though it looks like a flat design, this is how people would actually look at everything. Okay, this gets to look bigger and in front, so we just get to see it as, the smaller one is very far and the bigger one is very close. It gives that impression. Okay, so that's how sizes can also help you to add depth in your design. How do you see it? If you are seeing it already and you think you want more interesting lessons like this, I would highly invite you to join my community, because we get to have monthly workshops, okay, once a month, and it's online. You can join and order. We have an upcoming in-person event as well, just in case you are in Ghana, so make sure you also don't miss that, and the details will be coming out very soon, so watch out for that. Let's move on to the fourth technique you can do to add depth in your design. Okay, now the fourth one is applying shadows to your element. Okay, now in Canva, when it comes to shapes, you can't organically add shadows. Okay, you have to use maybe another shadow element into that, and I'll show you the two ways you can do that. Let's take a look. Okay, so with these shapes, if I want to add some shadows, I can't add it from over here, so I need to come into elements and search for shadow. Okay, search for shadow, and I come into graphics. In graphics, I should see a lot of shadows, so I can just take this, make sure it's aligning with what we have over here. Okay, and I can bring it closer, okay, and maybe reduce a little bit and send this behind. Okay, so you can see it even add more and extra depth. Okay, how do I even say it? Extra depth. Okay, into what we have over here. All right, so that's one sweet way we can do to add depth in our design. You can see how things are looking very interesting. Okay, this is looking very nice. I really like it. So that's how you can add shadows. Shadows helps you to add depth in your design. It makes it look like, okay, this is also in front, this is behind, and it brings, a flat design has all of a sudden come to life, as looking more realistic and more natural now that we've added shadows. Okay, and when it comes to images, all you can just do, for example, with this image we were using initially, we can just come to edit, come to shadows. Okay, and with this kind, let's say the light is right in front of me, I can use the glow, okay, the glow, so that anything behind me would have a shadow casted. Okay, and the blur amount is something you can also look at. Okay, so the more blend, the intensity, it would also help. Usually I like to do a drop shadow, okay, and also have the opportunity to adjust. In fact, let me make the intensity more so you can see what I'm doing properly. So you can adjust the angle of the shadow, okay, and the distance as well, and the blur. Okay, yeah, but the best way to add shadows to make your designs clean is make sure the intensity is very low. Okay, and once it's low, you can just keep things like this. Okay, very subtle and interesting. Okay, yeah, and we can see our design is still looking nice. The shadow is making whatever we have behind really look like they are behind. Okay, so that's another soft way to add depth in your designs. Now, the other way you can also add depth is adding blur to your designs. So there are times where you see some designs where there's like some elements are blur and it looks like they are more closer and all that. That works with the depth of field with cameras. Okay, so depending on the camera you are using, or that I don't have a camera yet, but I wish I had to use that to teach you. So there are some lenses that if you're focusing on the subject, everything else becomes blur, so that the focal point remains on the subject, and you can use that illusion or that technique in your design. And let's see how we can do that. Okay, so let's come into element and let's search for anything. Maybe let's search for calendar. Let's say we'll get any calendar we can use. A 3D calendar would be best. Okay, so let me just add 3D calendar. All right. Nice. So we can see what we have at the moment. I'll just quickly remove the background. Okay, so this is what we have at the moment. So let's add some blur to it. Okay, so I'll come to blur and whole image blur. Okay, now it shouldn't be too blur. Okay, so something like this is fine. It's not good to usually have blur items in your elements, but there are times where it works, especially if you want to add depth in your design. Combining this with the size and all of the things we've spoken about earlier, you can see how it looks already just by making it blur. Okay, you can see that if we make the focal point, my image is still the focal point. Okay, so depending on what we want to do, we can combine this with size. So I mean, the smaller the item, the less blur it's actually going to be. Okay, so the less blur, so we just use the blur and put it here, and we can put this here, make it smaller. Okay, and come back to, where did I go? Edit, yeah, and come to blur and reduce the blur. Okay, it should still be blur, but we are just reduced. So you can just see that the focal point still remains here on me. Okay, and we can still bring this in front. Okay, something nice, and this is just extra, something extra. But you can see we've been able to add depth in our design. Something very, this looks very clean. And if I add my text, it's just a complete design. So I can say become a Canva master. So become a Canva master. Okay, so I can just say become a Canva master, and that is all I need to do. And change this to white, add some bold to it, and we'll just also adjust things a little bit, and that is all. So I can put this here, I can move this here and just bring it up on top of this a little bit. Okay, just to add some vibes and all those things. So you can see what we have done, and I hope these techniques would help improve your design, just so that when you make any design, your design can look refreshing, appealing, pleasant, nice to look, and all of the nice things you want us to, describe your designs with. And look, make sure you are actually doing it, because this is one of the things I do for client work, and it always makes my client impressed because their designs come to life when I add depth in their designs. Okay, and I just hope you also apply it in yours as well. The name is Benjamin. Always remember, there is no limit to creativity, and I should see you in my next video. Peace.
Back and I'm better than ever. I think I got a vendetta. Oh, now they call me, I seen them. All of those times getting severed. I told them all I can let up. They ain't not tired of me never.